All right. And we are live. Very excited to be here today with Ted Demopoulos. Ted's a good friend I've met through SANS. I'll introduce Ted in just a moment here. But he's teaching a class at Hackers Teaching Hackers, which is a security conference in Columbus, Ohio. We hold it, it's been in the fall the past couple of years. This year it's the first week of November. We have 2 days of training, 2 days of, well, 1 day of villages, and then 1 full day of talks. So the third day of the conference is actually all hands-on. So it's a ton of fun, fantastic event. All right, so find out more information about the event itself out at hthackers.com. Tickets are available at 2022.hthackers.com, or you can just go to hthackers.com/tickets. My name is John Gornflow. I'm the Director of Speakers and Training. I'm also serving as the Executive Director for the con this year, and we're very excited about the con and getting everybody involved and presenting the con to everybody this year. It's going to be a ton of fun. Our theme this year is Goonies, which is always a good time. Favorite movies from my childhood, anyway. I'm also the founder and principal consultant of AttackD, a boutique information security consulting company focusing mostly on penetration testing and offensive work. With us today is Ted Demopoulos. He is the author of the class, the Infosec Rock Star Blueprint, and he's also a principal instructor with the SANS Institute, and also the founder and CEO of Demopoulos and Associates. So, Ted, you can introduce yourself a little bit further there. Feel free.
John, real pleasure to be here. Just a real quick introduction. I was going to school working on my PhD a million years ago, like last millennium. I had taken a bunch of computer classes. Although I wasn't a computer major, that's not what my PhD was in. I went to an interesting job fair in Boston. Really, I wanted to go hang out in Boston with friends. And my boss knew it at the university. It was fine. And I met this fascinating guy that wanted to hire me to basically learn things in computers and teach them to people. It's like, you want to pay me to learn stuff and play with computers? And my thought was, I'd do it for a couple years, get some real experience, go get my PhD. And that way I wouldn't just be like an ivory tower academic guy. And I realized really quickly I liked playing with computers a lot more than math. And I've never looked back.
I think that's probably true for most people, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I like math. It's just I'm no longer a mathematician.
Yeah, no, totally get that. Cool. So you're going to be joining us at HT Hackers this year and teaching your class the Infosec Rockstar Blueprint. Can you give us a little bit more about what that class is really all about?
Sure. I've always been fascinated with people that are just doing great things, that are doing incredible things. People that have more of an impact, are listened to more, are more visible, because the more visible you are, the more good things you can do, the more impact you can have. And it's hard to believe, but I started this 10 years ago. I started talking to people in security that I think are just doing amazing things and having a big impact, a big positive impact. And the joke term was Infosec Rockstar. And it was definitely a joke in the beginning, and people liked it. And what happened is, boy, I must have talked to over 100 people. There were formal interviews. There were informal interviews over like a beer or a cup of coffee or over lunch and so forth. And I ended up putting together a book eventually called Infosec Rockstar. And the one thing that came out was, and I would have slapped myself like a few decades ago if someone tried to tell me this, the technical stuff, the geek stuff, although it's critically important, it's not the differentiator. At a certain point, we're all good technically. We're all really good. It's something we have to fight to keep maintaining because technology keeps changing. And a lot of us really think we're not that very technical. So we look at what we don't know, not what we do know. And the field of knowledge just keeps increasing amazingly. And although different people told me different things, there was pretty much agreement from everyone that geek will only get you so far, right? It's not the geek skills that have you make the enormous difference. It's not the geek skills that make you more successful, however you might define success. It's the additional skills. Sometimes these might be called soft skills, but quite honestly, they're certainly not soft to me. I have trouble getting out of my own way sometimes. I have trouble figuring out what I want to do, what to focus on. I'm not a natural born great communicator. I'm not a natural born leader. And if nothing else, we need to at least, lead ourselves and so forth. And that's how it all began. And I can't believe it's been 10 years since I started this project.
Wow. It's a long time, but it goes quickly, doesn't it?
It does go quickly, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of where the project came from. What specifically led you to write this class, for the project itself? Because obviously there's a book and you've been speaking about it for a while, but why the class?
Well, it first started off as something I was interested in, just talking to really interesting people. And I put together a talk. And I gave the talk. I remember the first time was a SANS conference. The second time, I can't remember. It was a B-sides or something. And my first talks, at least I think they were cringe-worthy, but people liked them. And they gave me lots of feedback. And the talk evolved, and people just wanted more. They just wanted more information. So I wrote another related talk, and eventually I ended up writing a class, which I've taught online probably close to a dozen times now. I just taught it live for a government in the Middle East. I was kind of surprised the Middle Eastern government wanted me to come and do it, and that was less than a month ago. And over time, the class has evolved. And it's changed quite a bit. It's the same material that's been reorganized. The first thing we talk about is like, what do you really care about, right? What do you really want to do? What kind of impact do you want to have? What kind of success do you want to have? What matters to you? And I call that own your trajectory, for lack of a better name. Now, once you know what you want to do, what kind of impact you want to have, what's important to you, what success means to you. I mean, do you want to sit at home and work remotely? Do you like to travel? Or is forensics something you're fascinated about? Do you like working with big companies or startups, or, what matters to you? The second thing that I've always had an enormous problem with, just getting stuff done. If I want to put a really boring word on it, it would be time management. And it's not really time management. It's getting the most important things done. And there's all kinds of things that just stop us from getting the most important things, most important to us things done. Email's just one example, right? We can live in email and get almost nothing done. Also, unlike in a lot of other fields, many of us have somewhat interrupt-driven lives, right? Something happens, you need to react. Now, others do as well. My father was a doctor. He worked in the emergency room, right? So he was certainly interrupt-driven. But it's different for us than in most other professions. Now, next thing we talk about is what people think about you, your image. I call this own your image. Now, I would like to say it doesn't matter what people think about you. You just want to just do good things, do a good job, do work that matters, things that's important. But the fact is, what people think about us matter. If people don't think good things about us or nothing, we're not going to have much of a good impact or much of an impact at all. Now, I've been a consultant for over 30 years, so I've worked with dozens and dozens of companies. And in some companies, some organizations, I've gone in, security had a pretty good reputation, and I had a pretty good reputation because of it, sort of by default. It was easier to get good things done, to make progress, to do things that mattered. In other organizations, they hated information security. Like, they wanted nothing to do with us. That made it harder. Right there, I had to focus more on doing good things for the environment so that I'd be more listened to, so that I could have more of a positive impact and so forth. And basically, this is about doing good things in a somewhat visible fashion, right? Just helping others in a visible fashion. And there's lots of ways to do that. I mean, you could like speak at conferences, give talks in the company and so forth. You could write things. You can just help people. Just be a great resource. Just set a great example.
Mhm.
And we also talk about interfacing with people. Now, I use the term fan, like a sporting fan or something, and I use the term fan kind of generically. A fan is somebody that you believe in, that you like. For example, my first job, very quickly, I realized my first official boss, other than like a short order fry cook when I was working my way through school, he was a really good guy. It's like, of course, it was important to him that I did a good job, but he actually cared about me, cared about my future, my progression professionally and personally. And I pretty quickly became a fan of his. There's no question. I was a fan of his. Matter of fact, I still am. I first boss, like 1986. He actually just got married. I conducted the ceremony. So I'm definitely a big fan of his. Well, within maybe 3-4 weeks, I was not just like this employee he was helping out, but he became a fan of mine. It was like, this guy wants to do an exceptional job. He's really working hard. And so our fans are people that we add value to in some way. Maybe they read what we wrote. Maybe they work with us in the company. Maybe they've heard a conference talk or a webinar. We've done something positive for them. So we talk about owning our fans. And owning our fans almost sounds like it's manipulative, right? It could, owning your fans. But it's not that way. It's providing value to as many people as you can. And we're in a position these days where security matters to everything, right? Is this Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I think? I should know this. It is. Yesterday, driving home on one of the big radio stations, they actually had a quick blurb on Cybersecurity Awareness Month, like commercial radio. It's like we wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago, right? What we do affects everybody. Security affects everybody, and everyone knows it now. We also talk about the future. Whether we're talking 3 months or 3 years or 10 years down the road, like, where do we want to go? How do we want to evolve? Things are absolutely going to change, right? Even if you have the same job with the same exact job description, what you were doing 5 years ago and what you're doing now is going to be pretty different. Is going to be radically different in some cases, even though the words that describe it may be the same. And there's a great quote that if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. And I'm not sure who said that. It might have been the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland or something. And having at least some idea of where we want to go, what we want to do. And historically, I've been bad at this. I'm a geek. I just want to do geek things and do more and more geek things. And that's true, but that's only part of it.
Yeah. Now, there's so much to that, right? It's just a matter of kind of owning your own life, owning your career, figuring out where you're going to go, etc. And there's probably a lot of folks that are kind of feeling maybe a little aimless or wandering a little bit. But more specifically, like who's going to benefit from the class the most? Like, who do you think really should take this class?
Generally speaking, I get two kinds of people that take this class. I get all kinds, but there's two types. One is somebody with generally, let's say, 5 years or less in our field, who's just excited to have a bigger impact, to do more and more cool things. And of course, to be more successful personally, because the more value you add to the world, generally speaking, the more it's good for you as well. The second group of people I get are people that have been in our field or a related field, maybe technical, they moved to Infosec from IT or something like that. And they look back and they're like, man, I've done some really cool things in the past. I want to keep doing it. It's like, maybe what I'm doing now isn't exactly what I expected. That probably is most of us, right? And they look back on some of their past successes. And sometimes if we look back and analyze, we've done some really cool things we don't even think about anymore. It's like, oh, that's kind of like the past. Like, yeah, but that was an amazing thing you helped pull off, right? and who want to do more great things and want to have more control over doing the kinds of things that they want.
Very cool. So, specifically, like, when you bring those people in, what are the things that they really take away from the class? Like, what specifically are they going to learn that they can put to work in their career as soon as they start into their following week after the conference?
The two biggest things I'm going to say are knowing where they're heading, right? Their trajectory, how things are going, where they want them to go, and then specifically having some sort of a future plan. This is where I want to go. This is the kind of thing that I want to do. And interspersed throughout the entire course are a lot of mechanics, or like a lot of tactical things, right? Here's how we can do this. Here's, like, a bunch of different ways we can achieve this. Here's how we can, I sometimes use the term getting out of our own way, because I get in my own way all the time. I get lost in the weeds. Both big picture stuff. What do I really want to do in, like, the next 10 years, 5 years, 20 years? I'd like to say 60 years, but I'm not sure if I want to be around in 60 years. Right? And also, what are the low level things? It's like you don't execute the future, right? You don't say, I want to be, I don't know, I want to be a CISO, or I want to be doing this. It's like, okay, how do I start doing it? You don't. You start doing things that lead to this. Coming up with a number of tactical things that you can specifically do, concrete things that you can do to help you going forwards.
Nice. That's fantastic. And that's something I think that everybody could probably benefit from at one point in their career or another. I think we all hit a point either when we're first starting out of just not quite knowing where to go, or we get into things and we just feel a little overwhelmed at times. I mean, security, for a long time, security is this like one small group in a lot of companies. And now
Right.
tend to be very large groups and groups of groups. And there's so many different verticals that you can kind of focus in security. So figuring out where you want to go is kind of critical. And then, how to chart that path and where to go next. And then finding that success along the way. So very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, I had this interesting conversation, about 2 weeks ago. Very old friend of mine. She is a lawyer. She's a lawyer. She's just a lawyer, right? She's like, nothing technical. She knows how to use her smartphone. She does email. Hadn't talked to her since pre-pandemic. This is a very old friend of mine. She's starting to talk, and she's talking to me about phishing attacks and HIPAA compliance and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm heading up the regulatory compliance. It's for a Fortune 500 company. It's like, I'm heading this up, and I'm also involved in security awareness. It's like, well, wait a minute. You're like a lawyer. You're not a cybersecurity person. It's like, but what we do just pretty much permeates everything now, and it's becoming more and more so.
It does. It absolutely does. I tell folks when I teach that the computers touch every aspect of your life, and every business depends on them, whether people realize it or not. And to prove the point, like there's always somebody who's like, they want to get smart. And they're like, the Amish, they don't use computers. No, they do, right? I had a business, a partner business that called me for assistance. I didn't end up being able to help on it, but it was doing incident response for a ransomware event against an Amish family. And you're like, well, hold on, how do they have computers? Well, they have these things that are called word processors that you and I would call a computer, but it's approved for use by the Amish. So if the Amish are using computers and need help with incident response and information security, everybody does, right?
Absolutely. I was at one of the lowest tech companies maybe possible right before the pandemic. I was in Brussels, and I went to a Turkish kebab shop. It's like they cook kebabs on a grill and have salads and stuff like that. And I was there with a few friends, some of our mutual friends. I remember Jeff McJunkins was there.
Nice.
And it came time to pay. So I went to get the bill, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, our internet's down." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what that has." They couldn't tell us what our bill was because the internet was down. It's like, okay, not a big deal. We went and sat down, talked for another 20 minutes. We were just going to go talk somewhere else. Went back up. and internet was still down. They couldn't open the cash register. Never mind tell us what our bill was, because the internet was down. The cash register wouldn't open. And I was like, okay, here's some euros. This is more than enough to pay for what we had. You guys are great. I'm sorry you're having difficulties. And they're like, oh, no, we can't make change. We don't. And it's like, it's okay. It's like, we're leaving now. Like, you can't go. It's like, come on, it's a Turkish kebab shop. It was pretty good too, but it was like they make salads and grill meats on a grill, and their internet was down. They couldn't tell us what our bill was. We probably could have figured that out. The tax might have been hard. I don't know. They couldn't even open the cash register. It's like, I think that's a little too much reliance on technology in this case. But really, it does permeate everything. And even if we take a look at, something we probably wouldn't do, selling drugs on a street corner. Okay. I won't mention what city I was in recently, but I ended up driving through a relatively poor section of town. And there were people hanging out on the street. And I'm pretty sure there are people selling drugs on the street. Even someone selling drugs on a street corner, there's a cyber component to that, right? Because they have a cell phone they're using to communicate with people. So whether it's a legitimate business or a legal business or an Amish family or somebody with a high-tech smart house, whether it's a startup or a Fortune 500, there's technology involved, and security matters.
So true. And the harder it seems to tie security to that business, the more the skills that you're talking about in this class come into play, because it becomes it's twice as hard to convince people they need to care about the cyber-ish things, right?
Yeah, for example, in the Turkish kebab shop, they might have known the technology inside out. I don't know, right? They seemed like smart guys. They were younger, so they're more likely to be technologically hip, if that's the right word. But they didn't understand the impact all this reliance had on the business, and they put the close sign up. It impacted their money coming in and maybe feeding their families, and that's probably a little too dramatic, but it was a big deal to them.
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to hurt their revenue for the day, right?
Oh yeah, they closed. Yeah.
Yep. And for small businesses like that, that's a very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited to get you in to teach the class in Columbus. We are going to be teaching at hthackers.com/training. You can see more information about the training itself. We'll be kicking off November 1st for the training. So the training is 1st and 2nd. And then we'll do the conference with the villages on the 3rd and the talks on the 4th. Very excited to talk about the keynotes for the conference as well. We're going to have Casey Smith, who is a Sub T on Twitter, if you're familiar with him, well known for his security bypasses and just different hacking techniques. And so he's been doing that for quite a while. Excited to hear what he's going to talk about, trying to encourage people to develop some technical skills, write their own tools, which kind of maybe feeds into the Rockstar bit a little bit. We tend to associate those tool authors with some of that Rockstar mentality. And then we'll wrap up the conference with Mick Douglas is going to do a keynote for us at the end of the conference as well. So we're super excited to get to that. And I hear that Ted is actually speaking at the conference as well, not just teaching. You want to give us a quick blurb about your talk?
Sure. I'm giving a 1-hour Infosec Rock Star talk on the core parts that we expand on. We can only talk in talk. We can only give the basics. We can't give all the steps that you need to do. But I'm really looking forward to that. The ability to hopefully positively impact as many people as possible. And also, I'm really looking forward to the entire conference. Good friend of mine said it was the most fantastic conference he had gone to, maybe ever in a very, very long time. That was Tim Medine. And also here, the venue seems like it's incredibly cool.
Yeah, the venue is a lot of fun. We're hosting Brewdog, which is, let me pull up the site here real quick. So this is the event site. The venue itself, there's our keynotes. Let me get down to here. Zoom in a little bit so you can see those a little bit better. Venue is not gonna let me get any bigger. There we go. Brewdog is a brewery / hotel combo. So there's a restaurant, a brewery, some space for us to present, and it is a ton of fun. We've had it here the last 3 or 4 years. It's a fantastic place for an event. There is a hotel, some rooms. Let me get to the pictures of the rooms there. Right, the girls come separate. You got to, but fantastic. This is actually one of the suites. I'm not sure if the suites are still available. Some folks book those up. We've had a couple of vendors book those and throw impromptu parties at times. This is always a good time. But let me get to, you can see there's beer everywhere. So if you like beer, this is the conference for you.
I have requested, I have the Brewdog Punk IPA on tap in my room.
Nice.
There's a tap in my room, apparently, and I can choose what I want to come out of it.
Yep. Every room actually has its own tap. You can't see it real well. This is how it's lit, but it's that little thing right there. So you'll have your own fridge for beer. You can get your beer of choice on tap. And they also have the shower beer fridge. So if you're in the shower and you want a beer, you can actually like just reach out and grab a beer and take it right into the shower with you, which, I mean, seems like a pretty good deal to me, right? So
I'm going to have to try that. It's a basic principle.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? When in Rome. So there's Tim Medine, keynoted for us last year. And it was a lot of fun having him there. So excited to run the con again and get everybody back out there. So feel free to stop out, 2022.hthackers.com. Ticket information is available here, and then training information out here as well. Several different classes, including TED. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see everybody out there. All right.
If you're there, definitely come say hello, because I'm going to be hanging out and very much looking forward to this.
Yep. Well, I appreciate everybody that took the time to watch. Any closing words for us, Ted?
I'm just really looking forward to this. Last year, I could not make it. I had a conflict. I was bummed. I was doing something else that was, I had, that was pretty cool as well. But I'm really looking forward to this conference and want to see everyone there.
We're looking forward to having you. So hopefully we'll see all of you there as well. And we're less than a month away. So get your tickets, book a room, and we'll see everybody in just a bit. All right. Thanks for your time today, Ted, and look forward to seeing you first week in November.
Thank you, John. I'll see you soon.